you should be open to a new clean page in your vocabulary notebook, and you should be turned to page 18 in your textbook. So you should be open to a clean page, and you should be on page 18. Okay, we're going to have to figure out how to make this work, where we have vocabulary. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to write vocabulary in this small little area, and then I might just have to keep erasing and starting over. So we're on page 18. Face shields are on. Go ahead and read, Carla. Don't forget to read the title of, the title of today's notes is Chapter 1, Lesson 2, and then today's date, which is 9/16/20. So Chapter 1, Lesson 2, and then today's date, September 16th, 2020. And then we can go ahead and put number 1, but then put your pencil down. And Carla, go ahead and read on page 18.
The American land escape.
Not land escape. That's a compound word.
American landscape.
There you go. Read. Don't go ahead and read those words in the little circle. You are there. Because we're picturing ourselves here. This is not a real life situation. We are imagining ourselves in this situation.
You are there. You're about to take a trip across the United States with your family. You read a travel guide to learn what you might see. You will see many different landforms. Landforms are features such as mountains, hills, valleys, and plans.
Not plans.
Make up.
Carla, not plans. Remember, AI makes the long A sound, like A. So not plans, but planes. AI. What is it? Carla, AI makes that long A sound, like A. So P-L.
Plane.
A-I-N-S would be pl, a, ns. Pl, a, ns. Pl, a, ns. So what is that word? Planes.
Planes. That make up Earth's surface.
Good. So our first word is what, Carla?
Landform.
Landforms. Landforms is a compound word. We have the word land and the word forms. Put them together, you get landforms, which are what, Carla?
Which is features such as mountains, hills, valleys, and plains.
What else does it say about them?
Things that make up Earth surface.
Good. Landforms are features such as mountains, hills, valleys, and plains that make up Earth's surface. So landforms are features such as mountains, hills, valleys, and plains that make up Earth's surface. And remember, if you can't see this, either because it's smaller or because I'm in the way, it is in the book. Carla, when you're finished writing that definition, go ahead and finish out that second paragraph.
The United Miss Paula, I'm going to count until everybody's done.
Okay, just count to 10 slowly. Slow, fast, in your head. Because we can't wait too long, otherwise we won't have enough time to finish. So we've all got to get a little bit faster. Carla, go ahead.
The United States cover a huge area. In fact, it is the fourth largest country in the world. It is so big that you can see just about every kind of landform here. You can also see many rivers, lakes, and other bodies of water.
Good. So the United States is massive. Like it said, it's the fourth largest country in the world. The only countries that are larger, I think, are Australia. Well, actually, I'm not sure. I can't remember what it is, but I know it's Russia, and I know it's China. And I can't remember what the other one is that's bigger than the United States. It might be Canada. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. But the United States is the fourth largest country. It's massive. Because of that, you can go all over the country and see every type of landform that exists. You can see mountains. You can see hills. You can see plains. You can see valleys. There are some countries that are like smaller than the state of Tennessee. So you can't see all those different kinds of landforms because it's so small. It's smaller than the state of Tennessee, so it's all mountains or it's all plains. It's too small to have more than that. But the United States is so large that you can see every landform there is in the one country. You can also see lots of bodies of water. You can see oceans, you can see rivers, you can see lakes. Some countries, a lot of countries, aren't anywhere near the ocean. So they can't see it, but we can. You just have to go to it because it's so big. Okay, thank you, Carla. Now, what I want you to do is as we are reading, make sure that you are listening to every place that is mentioned because you will see some of them again on your homework. So as we read, we're starting with this section called In the East. Pay attention to every specific place mentioned in this section. So Victoria, go ahead and read on page 19. Loud and slow.
Your trip starts on
Oh, you forgot the title, the subtitle.
in the east.
So now we're talking about the eastern part of the United States. Let's see, we don't have a compass rose, so I'll go ahead and draw one right here. Remember, anything up is north, anything to the right is east, anything down is south, and anything to the left is west. So we're starting in the east, which means we're on the right part of the country. Keep going.
In the east, your trip starts on a sandy beach along the Atlantic Ocean.
A little louder, a little slower. No, just keep going, but keep yourself a little louder and a little slower.
The land here is flat and low. In fact, you are standing at sea level. Land that is at sea level is level with the surface of the ocean.
Good. What's number 2, Victoria?
Sea level.
Sea level. It is 2 words. And what is sea level? It is land that is what, Victoria?
Is level with the surface of the ocean.
Level with the surface of the ocean. That means it's very flat. The ocean is at the same level. So the ocean, right here, meets the land where it is. It's not like a hill and there's the ocean. It's not up here. The land is at the exact same level as where the ocean is. So Victoria, once you're done writing that definition, go ahead and continue. So what they're talking about now is land that is right along the ocean in the east. It is sea level. It is at sea level. This land right up against the ocean is at sea level in the east. When you have an O and an A together, it almost always makes the long O sound.
Coastal. The coastal plain. The flatlands stretching along the Atlantic Ocean make up what is called the coastal plain. A coastal plain.
Put that in your brain. Where's the coastal plain? What part of the country is it in? What part of the country? Is it the east, the middle, or the west? Is the coastal plain in the eastern part of the country? In the middle of the country, or in the western part of the country? Cullen?
East,
East, how do you know that?
because it is in the east.
It's in the section called In the East. Now a lot of you were just like, I don't know. I'm not even going to try. I have no idea. Well, how'd you find that answer, Cullen?
Because we're in the section in the east.
So you literally could do that strategy right there where you point to the key word, in the east. So please, guys, try. Okay. Put it down, Zari. Zari, remember, I need to see a little more of what you're working on. Okay, keep going.
A coastal plain is an area of low land that lies along the coast of the ocean.
So, what we're talking about now is the coastal plain. It is low land along the coast of an ocean. The coast is where water meets land, specifically along the ocean or very large bodies of water like gulfs, oceans, seas, things like that. That is the coast. So this right here is the coast. What we're talking about right now, the coastal plain, is right here along the east coast. It is low, flat land along the ocean. So even though we have a coast over here, this is not the coastal plain because we will learn later it is not low and it is not flat. This is the coastal plain because it is on the coast. That's where coastal comes from, but it's low and flat. That's where plain comes from. Keep going.
In Massachusetts, I can't say it.
You got it. You said it.
The coastal plain in a narrow
Not in.
is a narrow strip of land only 10 miles wide. Farther south, the plain gets much wider. By the time you reach the Gulf of Mexico, the coastal plain is hundreds of miles away.
Wide, not away. It says wide. So what that means is up here in Massachusetts, the coastal plain is only like 10 miles long. And then you get into the hills and the mountains. But the further you go south, the wider the coastal plain is. Because there's a line of mountains that we're going to talk about that runs from like here diagonally. So up here, the mountains are really close to where the ocean is. But because the mountains run diagonally, the further south you go, the further the ocean is from those mountains. So that means the coastal plain is wider in the south and narrower in the north. Thank you, Victoria. Go ahead and read next, Aaron.
As you
Don't forget to read the subtitles. Try it. That CH sounds like sh. Everything else is exactly how it's spelled, but that CH sounds like sh instead of ch. The Appalachian.
The Appalachian Mountains.
A little louder.
The Appalachian Mountains. As you move west from the coastal plain, the land rises higher and higher. Finally, you reach the highest lands in the eastern United States. The Appalachian Mountains. This chain of
Put that Appalachian Mountains in your head. Sorry, you were pausing for me, I think, and I forgot to. Put Appalachian Mountains in your brain. What part of the country is Appalachian Mountains in? Kingston. In the east. We're still in the east section. So where is it? In the east. Okay, keep going.
This chain of mountains stretches more than 1,500 miles from Alabama to Canada.
Good. So the Appalachian Mountains is an extremely long mountain chain. We call them mountain chains because you have mountain, 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 one after the other. A lot of times you can't even tell that one mountain has ended and another one has begun because they just like run into each other. Those Appalachian Mountains, you know that mountain chain that I was just talking about that makes the coastal plain really narrow up here and really wide down in the south? What mountain chain do you think I was just talking about? What mountain chain was I talking about that made the coastal plain really narrow in the north and really wide in the south? Smith?
The Appalachian Mountains.
The Appalachian Mountains. Very good. Great Smoky Mountains. You ever been there?
No.
You've been to if you have, you've been to the Appalachian Mountains. The Great Smoky Mountains are part of the Appalachian Mountains. They start up here in Canada, very close to the ocean, and then they run diagonally through New York and Pennsylvania and West Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama, and then they end right around here. They do not go all the way into Florida. Florida has no mountains. It just doesn't.
Yeah, unless mountains of sand.
Yes, but even then they're just piles. We can call them mountains, but technically they're just piles. Mountains are really big. So yes, the Appalachian Mountains is that chain of mountains that makes the coastal plain so narrow up north and so wide down south because the chain runs like this. We can pretend that this pointer is the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, keep going, Aaron.
The Appalachians are the
Louder.
The Appalachians are the oldest mountains in North America. They were once very tall over time.
Oh, what do you have between tall and over time? So they were once.
They were once very tall.
There you go.
Over time, rain and wind have worn down their peaks. Now the mountains appear rounded and no peak. No. Now the mountains appear rounded and no peak is higher than 7,000 feet.
So if we look at the bottom of page 19, we can see the Appalachian Mountains in that picture on the right, that blue picture. Those are the Appalachian Mountains. They are very rounded. They don't have the tall peaks that we think of when we think of like the Rocky Mountains. They're not really rocky at the top. They're pretty much covered in trees. That's because they're so old. They used to be tall and jagged and rocky like the Rocky Mountains. But over time, wind and rain and all of that eroded it away. So now they're shorter, they're very round. So over time, over millions of years, eventually, they will probably erode so much that they won't be there at all. And then the Rocky Mountains that we think of when we think of jagged, tall mountain peaks will be like the Smoky Mountains, and they'll be very rounded and very short. Very good. And then we can see a picture on the right of what the coastal plain looks like. We can see that it's very flat, it's at sea level. The ocean doesn't hit against a rock wall. It is very flat. That is a picture of the coastal plain on the right and a picture of the the Appalachian Mountains in that blue picture on the left. Okay, the pictures on page 18, we see a little bit of a desert and then we see some plains. Those are other things you can see in the United States. However, the Appalachian Mountains and the coastal plain are in the east. We don't have too many plains and we don't have any deserts in the east. Okay, turn the page. Ooh, now we're talking about the middle of the country. Kingston. Excuse me. Loud and slow. That was weird.
In the middle.
Louder.
In the middle. After you cross,
A little louder. We still can't hear you.
after you cross,
We said this. Aaron, can you tell them how to say that mountain range?
Appalachian Mountains.
So we're crossing the Appalachian Mountains. We've left the east and we're moving into the middle. Do you reach?
You reach a huge area of low grassy lands. You are now on the interior plains.
Interior plains. Where are the interior plains? Where are the interior plains? What part of the country are the interior plains in? Cullen.
In the middle.
In the middle. How did you know?
Because we're in the middle
We're
section.
in the middle section. So interior plains are in the middle. Keep going, Kingston.
These plants reach north from Mexico to the middle of the United States and into Canada.
So the interior plains. We've crossed the Appalachian Mountains. And now we're in this large flat area inside the country. So we're in the interior plains. Wait, where are we? Are we in the coastal plain? Are we in the Appalachian Mountains? Or are we in the interior plain? Zari?
The interior plain.
Very good. Okay, Kingston, keep going.
The eastern part of the
Oh, you cannot skip the subtitles, guys.
Central Plains.
Louder.
The eastern part of the interior plains is known as the Central Plains. Here you see wide rivers, grassy hills, and forests. In the northern part of the Central Plains are the Great Lakes.
Where are the Great Lakes? Aaron?
In the middle.
In the middle. Keep going, Kingston.
These 5 connected lakes, Superior, Michigan, Huron,
Erie.
Erie, and Ontario, form the largest group of freshwater lakes in the world.
I went to Lake Superior this summer. On our way back from visiting my brother in Idaho, we traveled across the whole top of the country, and I put my feet in Lake Superior. So, that part. So we're talking about the Central Plains. Here's the Appalachian Mountains. We're talking about the Central Plains. These are the interior plains. The Central Plains are the eastern part of the interior plains. My hand's going to be so disgusting. The Central Plains are the eastern part. So we are in the Central Plains. The northern part has the Great Lakes. These are the Great Lakes. This is Lake Superior up here. This is Lake Michigan between Wisconsin and Michigan. I'm sorry, no. Yeah. This is Lake Michigan between Wisconsin and Michigan. If you've ever been to Chicago, you've seen Lake Michigan. Then we have Lake Huron between Michigan and Canada. Down here, this little one, we have Lake Erie. You can see this on your map on page 20, or Colin, you have your little map. And then Lake Ontario is between New York and Canada. So these are the Great Lakes. They are the northern part of the Central Plain. We are in kind of the mid-southern Central Plain. I wonder why we're called Mid-South. Could it be because we're in the middle south of the Central Plains? Probably. Probably. Very good. So that's the Central Plains. We've got the coastal plain here. We've got the Appalachian Mountains. And we've got the Central Plains. But the interior plains, the Central Plains are only part of the interior plains. Because once we leave the Central Plains, we get to the next part of the country, which is what, Smith? What's the next part of the country? The next piece that's in the middle.
The Great Plains.
The Great Plains. So we've got the interior plains. That's everything. That's the whole center of the country. The whole flat, low, grassy center of the country. There's no mountains near here, are there? No. So we are in the plains. It is flat, it is low, it is grassy. If there weren't buildings and roads and things like that. And we've got the Central Plains, but that's just part of the interior plains because then we move to the Great Plains. And Smith, read to us about the Great Plains.
Most of the land on the interior plains is flat, but there are some hills.
So, it's not entirely flat. There are some hills. Not really big, not a whole lot, but there are some. Keep going.
On the Ozark Plateau, you see low mountains covered by forest.
Where is the Ozark Plateau? Victoria. In the middle. Keep going.
A plateau is a high, flat area of land.
Very good. It's very large. It's very flat. It gets high and then it gets really flat, but it's very large, so we can't really see the beginning and the end. What's our next word, Smith?
Plateau.
Plateau. P-L-A-T-E-A-U. It is a weird spelled word, but that's how we spell it. And what is a plateau?
A plateau is a high, flat area of land.
A high, comma, don't forget, flat area of land. Now, normally, I would be putting little indentions, so I know I don't have a new word, but I can't fit it and the map. After, I'm going to have to erase for number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this for number 3 of high flat area of land, but it's in your book. I'll start with number 1. Cullen, as soon as you are done and I am done.
Me?
Sorry, Smith. As soon as you are done and I am done, you may continue.
No, don't get me and Smith mixed up.
I already told you I get you mixed up. You two and Zari and Zadie.
Farther west, the land becomes flatter and higher.
So, sorry, I forgot to say this. The Ozark Plateau is right around northwestern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri. This is the Ozark Plateau. I'm sorry, southwestern Missouri and northwestern Arkansas. If you've been to Greer's Ferry or Heber Springs, that's the Ozark Plateau. That's why there are small mountains and things there, because you're in a plateau. You're in that high, flat area of land. So what that means is it gets, as you move from Tennessee into Arkansas and southern Missouri, it gets higher and higher and higher, and then it flattens. It's like they took a mountain and they cut the top off. But it's really big. Like, so I'm not talking about Sugarloaf Mountain. That's just a piece. Because you can't see the edges of the plateau.
We're not over by Sugarloaf.
I used to go to Greer's Ferry, and we'd climb up to the top of Sugarloaf Mountain. But, which is not actually a mountain, it's just a hill. But,
We did that.
It's a big hill.
Yes.
It's a big hill, but it's not quite a mountain. But yes, so the plateau, as you're moving into Arkansas and southern Missouri, the land gets higher and higher and higher, and then it's like they cut the top of the mountain off. And that's a plateau. Okay, Smith, keep going. So we just talked about the Ozark Plateau, which is only around right here, but we've got the Central Plains all to the east of it. And then we move into the rest of the Great Plains. Keep going, Colin. Actually, pause for a second. Go ahead, Smith. Keep reading.
You are now on the Great Plains, the western part of the interior plains.
So just like the Central Plains was the eastern part, the Great Plains is the western part of the interior plains. So the interior plains is one massive area of land that is split between three things: the Central Plains, the Ozark Plateau, the Great Plains. Sorry, keep going. I really like social studies, especially when we talk about geography and maps, so I get really, really into it.
Me too. Here you see few rivers or lakes and hardly any trees.
There's plants,
Grass,
but just not tall trees. It's just like tall grasses and shrubs and things like that.
grasslands stretch across the land for miles. The Great Plains is home to mountains such as the Black Hills of South Dakota and Wyoming.
I also went there this summer. I went to a lot of places. I did this in a car. What? And then stayed here for a week. Went to Glacier National Park.
So basically, you went around.
You went around the world.
How did you get past the river?
And then back there for 2 weeks in a car. It was really fun. It was really cool.
Y'all sleep in the car?
We didn't sleep in the car.
Yeah.
We stayed in hotels that we felt were safe. And then we stayed with my brother in Idaho. And then we stayed with my aunt, uncle, and cousins in Michigan. Okay, we have to keep going. I'm sorry. It's really interesting, I know, but we don't have time. I at least want to get through the rest of In the Middle. But I do want to pause because I want us to look at the map at the top of page 20. This map shows us the landforms in the United States. Whenever we have a map like this, well, we see all these colors. We have to know what the colors stand for. So we're going to look at the map key. The map key is that little white box in the top right that tells us what each of those colors mean. So on this map, when you see purple, what landform is represented by the purple? Kingston. Mountains. So find all the mountains. Well, we can see in the east, on the eastern part of the country, we have that chain of purple. That's the Appalachian Mountains. So what I was representing with my pointer is the Appalachian Mountains. Then it's we have no mountains for a while, and then we get to the Ozark Plateau, which is like short mountains, tall hills. Then we don't have mountains for a while, and then we get into the next big purple area. What mountains is the next big purple area after the Ozark Plateau? So we've got the Appalachian Mountains, we've got the Ozark Plateau, and then we get into this purple chain of mountains, which are which mountains? Carla?
The purple shade on the side with all the others is the Rocky Mountains.
The Rocky Mountains. I was also in the Rocky Mountains this summer because my brother lives in the Rocky Mountains.
You were everywhere.
I was everywhere. My friend said, are you traveling over the whole world? Well, you can't leave the country, so what can we do? We can see everything in our country, which is massive and beautiful. Beautiful. There were some things that were so pretty, I literally teared up.
I stayed
No.
Yes.
close.
Yes.
Tennessee.
They are so beautiful. I love mountains. Mountains are my favorite place to be. I love the beach, but I'd probably pick the mountains over the beach. I love the beach though,
I stay.
but I would. So we've got the Rocky Mountains. Then we have no mountains for a while, and then we get to the coast. And what mountains? We have several mountain ranges. Tell me one. So keyword, range. Tell me one. Aaron. Tell me the one that's almost all the way to the top. You can turn your book if you need to.
Cascade Range.
The Cascade Range. And then right next to it, right between the Cascade Range and the coast is what range? Smith? So right along here,
Coast ranges.
the Coast Range. Then we go south, we're still along the coast, and we're still in the Coast Range. And then we go a little bit inland, and we have what range down in here? No, it doesn't say range, but it is, you can see where it's written sideways on the purple. Victoria?
Coast.
We already talked about the Coast Range. We've got the Northern Coast Range and the Southern Coast Range. But right across that green area from the coast, the Southern Coast Range is the
Central
Sierra.
Sierra.
It's the name of a state where Las Vegas is. Colin, can you help her out?
Sierra Nevada.
Sierra Nevada mountains. I went to those, but it was a very long time ago. Very long. I was 12. I've been all over the country. I've been all over the South. I've been all over the North. The only place I have not been is Alaska, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington,
Mexico.
Maine. That's not in the United States. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. That's it. I've been everywhere but those. There's one more. Nevada. I've never been to Nevada.
I've been to Alaska.
I've been all over, but I've never been to Nevada.
Florida?
Everybody knows.
Yep, I've been to Florida. Okay, come on, let's go. I know. It's really interesting, and I could talk about it all day, but I want to at least get through a mighty river. But we still, what?
This spelled out on myself.
Oh, what is it?
It says it's Summer Super Edition 6. It's math.
It's math.
It's 6th grade.
Oh, that's weird.
I'll take it to my sister.
Just put it to the side for right now, because I do want to see what it is. I don't know why, but I do. Okay, so let's keep going. Good. So all the purple areas on this map on page 20 are the mountains. We've got the Appalachian Mountains, we've got the Ozark Plateau, we've got the Rocky Mountains, we've got the coastal ranges, the Cascade Range, and the Sierra Nevadas. Now inside those ranges are smaller mountain ranges, but there are smaller mountain ranges that are part of the larger ones. Like my brother lives in the Targhee Mountains, but that's part of the Rocky Mountains. And in the Appalachian Mountains, well, you've got the Smoky Mountains, which are a little group of mountains in the Appalachian Range. Then you have like the Blue Ridge Mountains a little north that are another smaller range within the larger Appalachian Range. So each of these large ranges has smaller ranges within them. But they just name them. When we're talking about the whole range, they have their own name. Good. So next, what do these tan areas show on this map? The tan areas show what? Zari?
Plantains.
Not plantains. There's that E. When you see EAO in a word, it usually makes the long O sound. So EAO together usually, not always, but usually makes the long O sound. So how would you say that?
Plateaus.
Plateaus. Good.
Plateaus.
So the tan shows the plateaus. We can see that there are plateaus up in western New York and Pennsylvania and northern Ohio, eastern Ohio. We can see some plateaus. Even though the Ozark Plateau is a plateau, we actually don't really see many plateaus because the plateau itself is actually not huge. It's pretty small. You can't necessarily see the beginning and the end, but it's kind of small. But then when we get out west, we see a lot more plateaus. you can see a lot of that tan plateaus. Those are kind of like mountains with the tops cut off. Remember? They're mountains with steep sides and flat tops. Or they don't have steep sides, I'm sorry. Those are mesas, which we'll talk about later. Like much later. Plateaus are high, flat areas of land. It's kind of like a mountain with the top cut off, but it's really big, so you can't necessarily see the beginning and the end of a plateau. What you think of when you think of these high, flat mountains like that are mesas and buttes. We don't have any mesas or buttes in the eastern United States, or really even in the middle. Those are more in the west. Quickly, Kingston. Kind of, yes, but a really big one where you can't necessarily see the end or the beginning. But it is kind of like a volcano, except instead of having a hole down the center, it's just flat and solid. Okay, and then we see the Colorado Plateau around where these 4 states meet, called Four Corners. Guess what? I've been there. Right here. I had my feet right here.
So has Mrs. Escobar.
Because she's from here. She's from here. And my brother used to live here. Now he lives here. So, but also I went there when I was 12 when we went to California. I'm sorry, I really like traveling. I could talk about it all day. I could show you pictures, but we don't have time. I wish we did, but we don't. But, let's see, and then we've got the Columbia Plateau up in Washington State. We've got lots of plateaus, a lot more than we think of. Now, what is the yellow? What does the yellow represent on this map? Ethan? What does the yellow represent on this map? The hills. Very good. So hills are tall, but they're not as tall as mountains. Like we know hills are tall, but they're not as tall as mountains. Now we're not talking about hills like the one down on Riverside Drive where it goes up. These are bigger hills. They are bigger. Sometimes they may look, you may think, oh my gosh, that's like a mountain. But they're not actually. They're not quite high enough to be mountains, but they are pretty tall. So you can see, like, okay, if you've ever driven through Nashville, it kind of looks like there's mountains, but those aren't actually mountains, they're just hills. They're hills because the land is getting higher and higher before you get to what mountain range? When you're driving from here to Nashville and it starts getting hilly, which look kind of like mountains, but they're not, the land is getting higher and higher because you're getting to what mountain range? What mountain range are you driving into when you're driving towards Nashville? Carla? What mountain range are you getting closer to when you start seeing the hills in and around Nashville? Smith, can you help her out?
The Appalachian Mountains.
The Appalachian Mountains. Mountains don't just come out of nowhere. You can kind of see around every mountain range, you either have hills or you have plateaus. Because the land starts raising or starts getting higher little by little. So you get the hills and then you may get the plateaus and then you're in the big mountains. Everywhere where you see mountains, you see there is either hills or there are plateaus between the mountains and the last green, which is what? The green areas represent what? Zari?
Plains.
Plains. Plains are flat, low, grassy areas. So you can see there's pretty much nowhere where you go from this flat, grassy land to mountains, except for this one little area in California, the Central Valley, because valleys is land between mountains. That means there are no hills or plateaus. It just is mountain, and then all of a sudden it's way down low. That's a valley. Valleys are lands between mountains. But pretty much everywhere else, the land doesn't just stay flat and then all of a sudden just get higher. You have the hills that come between, or the plateaus, which are shorter than mountains. Okay, so does everybody understand this map? And then you've got Alaska that has pretty much every single type of landform in one state. Mm-hmm. Yes, Kingston.
I don't see like the plateau.
You don't see what? Plateaus. It's the second one. It's tan. there's tan and yellow. It is kind of hard to see, but if you look closely, you can see that there's tan, and then there's also yellow. Like if you look at South Dakota, you can see that's this state right here. Do you see how there's green, and then there's tan, and then there's yellow? It's very close, but it's a little bit different. Do you see the difference? Yes, you can take that. Do you see the difference between the tan and the yellow? It might be very light, and that's okay. Okay, so let's see, what time is it? Okay, you know what? We're just gonna save a mighty river. This happens every single year. I get real excited talking about the map, and then we run out of time to finish the lesson. But I already knew we didn't really have time to finish the lesson, but I was hoping to get through a mighty river, but that's okay, we'll do it next time. I'm gonna go ahead and give you your homework. However, it is not due, not just until Monday, but until Tuesday. No, actually I'm not, because I don't want you to work ahead and then get confused and mess up. So, no social studies homework. But,
Wait, what?
no social studies homework.
Oh.
So we will finish this lesson on, well, we'll finish this lesson next Monday. So go ahead and put your social studies stuff away. I know, social studies is my favorite. If I was not in elementary